Alright, BobalosRex here, and it's Sunday. So you know what that means. We're having a lore rant, and you may be saying, why are you on Season of Discovery for your lore rant? Well, there's new Season of Discovery content coming out this week, and it involves the Scarlet Crusade. And it's actually new vanilla content. So that had me thinking, right? If we did get Phase 8, or this is Phase 8, Phase 9, or Classic Plus, or whatnot, what kind of new lore stuff could we see done? And I do want to talk about raids and dungeons and stuff, but I did want to talk about class stuff. Because we did see some interesting stuff go on with Season of Discovery classes, where they had new specs, kind of, but not really. Would we see those become full specs? Like have their own tree? Will we see them adjust the talent trees? You know, will we get new class combos? Okay, if you look on Horde and Alliance, you'll see this. You know, if we're gonna keep classic and have like a cap of 6 classes, like humans and trolls do, maybe we could see them fill in the slots for other races. Alright, so maybe for Orc, we could see them get... Oh shoot, what was I gonna say for Orc? I did have another list. But yeah, for Orc, they could add Mage. They could add Priest. Because you could start to see them maybe add the specs that we see modern WoW have for the race. So Tauren could get Paladins. Tauren could get Mages, Warlocks at this point. Tauren could be able to get a whole bunch, but I would see maybe they could do Tauren Paladin to get us some Horde Paladin. And then see them do Tauren Priest. Do the Priest and Paladin combo. Versus like Rogue or something. They could do... There is that Tauren Rogue. There is that Tauren Rogue. We could get Tauren Rogues in Classic. But for Undead, you could give them Hunters and be plain, because Undead have Hunters in Modern. Or, and I know people have been talking about it, Undead Paladins. I've been talking about it for a long time too. Dude, Undead Paladins in Classic WoW maybe coming in Classic Plus or in Phase 9 or something would be so cool. Especially if they were also in Modern WoW. Alright. And then, yeah, Trolls are already capped up. So that could be what Horde get. Now, Alliance, let's see. Dwarf Shaman. Dwarf Shaman, insta-pick right there. That's one of the best people over here for Shaman. Now, we have Night Elf. Night Elf Shaman? We see them in Dragonflight. Basically. They should be in Modern WoW. In my opinion. But Night Elf Paladins. I know people want Night Elf Paladins. I want Night Elf Paladins. Night Elf Paladins in Classic WoW. If Night Elf Paladins hit Classic WoW before Modern WoW, people would be mad though. So Night Elf Undead Paladins in Classic and Retail. Bada boom. But I think that would be a cool pick. They could do Warlocks. We have Night Elf Warlocks now. They have a lot of interesting stuff. Now for Gnome. Again, you want to... Gnome Paladins. People want them. People are going to argue, oh no, but they can't. Well, you can get Gnome Paladin Priest. Paladin Priest there. Paladin Priest there. Boom, boom. Evened up. Shaman there. Paladin there. Alright. They evened up a little bit, and then we get If they get a, that'd be, you can give them Paladin, but we could give them maybe Warlock. In this case, with how I'm filling it up. Or Mage. Night Elf Mage would be a good pick for Classic, I think. If you don't want there to be too many Paladins, right? You give Gnome Paladin and Priest, and then you give Night Elf Mage. Or maybe Shaman. I think it would be cool. So those two Shaman, these two Paladin, Priest, and then give them Mage. No one's gonna argue about them getting Mage. Or Paladins, I mean, come on. So, let's get to the main stuff. I think interesting class combos would be cool. Adding new races could be cool. What new races could we see on... This is kind of like the Wrath client, I believe. Could we see Worgen? Could we see Goblins? Could we see High Elves? Would they be on Alliance side? Or would you just give them to Horde? Goblins would be Horde. Goblins could be neutral. But yeah, we got Worgen. We got Broken. They can maybe pull in the Draenei early. Pandaren early. Like, they could do something new. Maybe Ogre. If they did something new and it's not in retail, people would be like, what the fuck? You know, maybe give more customizations on Classic and retail. Because if they did it, if they gave us new customizations in Classic and not retail, I would be pissed. I'd be like, what the hell? But now let's get to the meat of this video. Here, let's get to the meat. So I'm gonna log in. This is my alliance. I did have a level 50. But let's take a look at the world map. Because this is what I want to talk about. So, I'm going to recap what classic raids and... or, I'm not going to recap all the dungeons. We all know the dungeons. But the raids, okay? And kind of like the gist of them. So, we had Troll Raid. We had a Fire Elemental in a Black Dragonflight raid. Okay? We had... Old God Silithus 2-part raid. Then we had an Undead raid. Okay? Naxxramas. Then we got Burning Crusade. We went off. We did Karazhan. We came back for Karazhan. And the rest is history, right? But let's talk about Classic. Now we got Season of Discovery. They did a little interesting stuff. They made BFD a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker, and a little bit cooler, and turned it into a level up raid. I thought was a cool idea. I like level up raids as an idea. But when we talk about SoD ideas to carry forward, that's going to be its own video. But Gnomeregan got a level up raid. Okay, so they started to adjust dungeons. That's kind of all they did. And then they did add some quests, some cool lore quests that I haven't actually really done and I want to do. That involve like a crystal up here and some interesting stuff. So they've added quests. Okay, let's continue on. So then they, for the first time, they added a new dungeon. So there is a new dungeon in Ashenvale up here that basically uses this area, Demonfall Canyon. Right? That's pretty cool. That's pretty freaking cool. You know, they're filling in a dungeon in an area that is kind of empty for dungeons. If you look in this area, like, there is no dungeons other than here. There's a dungeon there, and then there's just no dungeons here. There's a world boss here now, but there's no dungeons. No dungeons pretty much all up here. For the most part. I'm trying to think. Yeah. Okay. But they added one. Then, they added another dungeon. Karazhan Crypts. Because they're like, we can't go into Karazhan yet. That's for Burning Crusade. But, we can go in the Crypts. And they basically did Karazhan Classic. It has an opera event. It has this really cool mechanic people really like. It has a secret extra boss, like Nightbane. Really cool. I really enjoy that. I haven't got to do that, but I've gotten a remade Karazhan before. We all know the Mega Dungeon. Great. When they do these they know how to deal with Karazhan. Okay, and they know how to make dungeons. The classic team does, in my opinion. From what I've seen. So then, for the first time, we're getting a new raid tier. This would be tier 4 asterisk. Tier 3 plus. I don't know, because we know what tier 4 would have been in Burning Crusade, but now we're going into unknown territory. And I do think that this, in my opinion, is what I thought would be a classic plus, where it's classic, but you just stay in the old world and they're just adding what they would have wanted to do in the old world versus us going off and doing the main story. And it'd be kind of side plots, right? You know, it's like an anime, instead of going on to the next season doing a filler arc, they're just doing fillers for classic in between Burning Crusade, right? And then, of course, their first choice, and this to me was like the obvious choice, because the Scarlet Crusade is one of the classic bad guys that is so hyped up, right? People love them. The Scarlet Crusade raid we're getting. Whole new thing. It's going to be over here in the area where the Death Knights are, and I've seen pictures of it and videos of it. It looks great. I can't wait to see it. Okay, but we're just talking about the lore here. So this is the general. A Bendis is going to be there, because you do see a general there, so that is kind of like filling in that what kind of happened to the Scarlet Crusade in between Classic and Wrath, because they were peak, they were blasting. Okay, I'm not saying the Scarlet Crusade is good, they're bad, but they had all this territory up here. Okay, and then we see them kind of work with the Argent Crusade, but not really. The Argent Crusade is against them for the most part. But I guess there's some classic stuff where we're going to infiltrate. And like I said, I don't know the Season of Discovery extra lore, but I need to get into that. But we basically see the Scarlet Crusade get wrecked pre-Death Knights, right? Because the player characters now in this Season of Discovery are going to go in there and beat them up. Okay? So that's kind of cool. We get to be the adventurers that take out Lillian Voss, which fills in that whole story that we see pop up in Cataclysm and that whole character, which is kind of cool. So they can... The idea of them adding in characters, I don't know if they could do that with another character, because Lillian Voss specifically is like undead. You know, we didn't know what happened to her, and then they're like, hey, it was us. Dun dun dun. I'm trying to figure out what other characters they could do. Like, that would be a hard one to just come up with the top of my head. But I have been thinking about where else we could get raids. The main run of this video is I wanted to talk about what we could see in future raids, in dungeons, in Classic, that could fill in the holes. Alright? So, let's go down the continents. Now, we see a lot of dungeons and raids over here, right? We got Scholomance, we got all this stuff over here. Now, one of the areas we see touched upon in Legion is basically the west of Tirisfal, okay? This area is touched upon in Legion a lot. Tears 2. I think it'd be cool to see that maybe as a dungeon. Maybe a dungeon for leveling undead. Or it could be an endgame dungeon. I just know that we do got a lot of endgame dungeons already up over here. So this could be a leveling dungeon. Okay, and it'd be a shorter one where you kind of just delve into the tomb. You see some of the stuff. Maybe you see one of the cultists that we'll see later on down the line in Legion, and we fend him off, and he's like, I'll be back. And then we shut the tomb again, and the Tears Guard that were there thank us and tell us to keep it a secret, keep it safe. Like, I think that would be cool to see Tears Tomb in Classic. Alright. Where else up here? Okay. Here's a spot over here. So, I wish I had the full map revealed. But over here in Hinterlands, right? You have the green dragons. You have the trolls. We don't have a green dragon raid. We have a green dragon dungeon. We have a troll 20-man raid, but we don't have a full troll raid. And maybe we can combine the concepts and we get an Emerald Dragon troll raid over here. You know, you have the Emerald Dragon world bosses that you'd kind of do in a raid, but I would want to expand on that. Maybe we get a full... I just think there'd be a cool Hinterlands raid in store, or maybe you do one up over here, is what I was thinking as well. We have Zul'Dare. So you have the undead troll area up here. What if there was an undead troll raid? Or dungeon. This could be a dungeon. You know, it's like old Zulaman or something. And instead of it being what we get in Burning Crusade, it's... So... You know how in Burning Crusade it talks about how there was like a dark power that he did? Maybe we see what the dark power was. Maybe it's down over here in like Lower Zulaman. I think could be a cool dungeon or maybe a raid, you know? I think that would be cool. That one I kind of just fleshed out on the spot. Another area that I want to talk about is some of these zones need to be fleshed out. Alterac Mountains needs to be fleshed out. Literally, it was combined with Hillsbred in Cataclysm, and it's like, in Classic, give it something. Holy crap. Maybe a level up Alterac Stronghold dungeon. Like, what if they made this into like a little dungeon you go around and you actually kill, like, just... It'd be like bandits and ogres and stuff like that, and you just beat them up. Nice little level up dungeon. Over here. Where's the level up dungeon right here? I don't see any. So, like, it's just... Shadowfang Keep. That's it. It's Shadowfang Keep. If you look over here, 2 dungeons right here. You got Wailing Caverns. You got RFC. You got that there. It's like, this is packed. All the high-end dungeons are over here, but, like, let's give some love right here. Alright. Imagine a Proto-Gilnean dungeon where it's kind of like the Stockades. It is Horde-themed. You go into Gilneas, and you're just fighting Alliance Gilneans defending their land like, no, you ain't getting in here. And you're fended off. Like, at the end of the dungeon, like, a whole Gen shows up and it's like, out of my city! And then you have to run out of the dungeon. Or you die. And then you... Maybe there's, like, a little wall. Like, the dungeon ends just past the wall. And then you get, like, a little treasure chest, like, oh, well, we tried. I don't know, they could do something. There's also, like, the islands down over here. I don't think... We could maybe get a Tolbarara thing. Like, if we were going to go to an island, I think Tolbarad would be the island that could be gone to the more I think about it. Especially now that we got Cataclassic. So where else are we going to look? I do wish they would flesh out questing, but that's a whole different story. Okay, Grim Batal and the Twilight Highlands. I don't know if we could see the Twilight Highlands, but Grim Batal not being a dungeon in Classic is just a huge miss. I wasn't a big Alliance player, so I imagine they feel this a lot more than me, but when I went over here as Horde and I saw this big gate here, I was like, what the hell? This ain't a dungeon? We are crammed with dungeons in this area, right? We got a spot here we could fit a raid or a dungeon. I think Grim Batal would be a raid. And I think Grim Batal would be like a cool raid where it's... So we kill Nefarian and take his head, right? And then he doesn't come back until way later. I would love to see... So he had a laboratory assistant, right? What if we see them having a secret backup facility in Grim Batal where they are resurrecting Nefarian in that facility? Rather it be, boom, Deathwing resurrected them all of a sudden, we see where that is brewing. The Grim Batal cloning facility, or maybe it's an attempt. Like, he would have been back sooner had this succeeded, but we go in there and stop it. And it'd be like Chromatic and Shadow Dragon raid. You know, it'd be kind of like Blackwing Lair 2, but Grim Batal. Maybe have like the Skarden in there or something. I think that could be cool. I know there's like book lore for in between those times that may be an issue, but I just think Grim Batal would be cool to go into as a raid. Let's see, we got anything else down here? There's room over here to add stuff, but we're jam-packed with dungeons here. You got Uldaman, we got the 2 big raids and their dungeons, Swamp of Sorrows. Yeah, I didn't add anything else down here, so let's head on over. Right, I didn't add anything down here? Okay, yeah, let's head on over to Kalimdor. Alright, so what did I want to add here? So, Moonglade can use some love, in my opinion. But you know what area needs something? Winter Spring. This area needs a dungeon and a raid. This needs an endgame dungeon. Maybe a Timbermaw Hold. But that could be an Ashara. And a raid. The perfect raid up here, Blue Dragon Winter Spring raid. We have some drama in here that we find out in Cataclysm where a dude eating dragons. We got some demons and dragon stuff here. You got Hyjal. Okay? I think we can get a cool blue dragon thing in Winter Spring. And then Hyjal be an actual zone and have its whole own thing as well. Okay? But Winter Spring needs some love. Okay? They got nothing up there. Okay? Now, let's hop over to Felwood, Moonglade, and Hyjal. Okay? There is something called the Barrow Deep, which is a warden facility where Illidan was before the first time before Warcraft. It was before Warcraft 3. That's where Illidan was, in Barrow Deep. I would love to see a warden dungeon. Maybe it's a late game dungeon, not an end game dungeon. Maybe it is an end game dungeon, and it's the warden facility where Illidan was. It's in disrepair after that. You go in there and you beat up some stuff in there. Any like remnant, like demon hunters or whatever. Maybe that could be how you unlock classic demon hunter mode for warlocks or some crazy shit. I don't know. I think that would be a cool dungeon. Maybe even raid. I don't think it's a raid level I think it's a cool dungeon. But I think that could be cool. Another dungeon in this area that I'd like to be touched upon is Timber Hold. That one I think could be in Ashara, because you have that big gate there. But yeah, Timber Hold. We are friends with... I guess we're friends with the main Timber Maw. So maybe like Gnarlmaw or something like that. All I know is a Furbog dungeon. I put here Mega Dungeon. I just want this one to be a big Furbog dungeon. Maybe we get some Furbog lore. Maybe we have like a corrupted Ursoc or Ursol. You know, they always be getting corrupted. Or something. Maybe something with the Nightmare with that. I think that could be a cool dungeon. I don't know about a raid, but I think it would be a cool dungeon. But why we're here, right? Ashara is so underutilized, and I really hope they flesh this out as a zone with quests and stuff. You know, not... Because this is Ashara pre-goblins. The one tower is still here, but this is pre-goblins, Ashara. This is like Naga. This is Night Elf Ruins. This is authentic Ashara. This deserves a raid. Okay, I would love a Wrath of Ashara, Eye of Ashara-like raid here, where maybe the portal's right here and you go into the depths and then you're in like this underwater zone and you're fighting Naga and water elementals under her control, and maybe the boss is Uzamat, pre-Uzamat. Maybe it's us beating up Neptulon so that he helps us later, or helping him so that he's more nicer to us later the next time we see him in Cataclysm. I think a Naga raid in Classic could be really good. A Naga raid in the Classic style with like... Ashara shows up at the end kind of thing, and you fight her court kind of thing. I don't think you could fight her in Classic full power, because we do fight her later, but I think it'd be really cool to see a Naga raid in Classic. Alright, next up, we're heading over to Stone Talon. I think Stone Talon is an underutilized zone. There is actually like this whole upper area of Stone Talon Peak, and I think there could be a cool leveling dungeon in Stone Talon. Maybe going up towards the peak. Maybe it involves some wild gods that we don't know about, or that we haven't seen much of. You know, I just think Stone Talon could have some cool stuff going on, and I'd love to see maybe it more fleshed out and there be a dungeon there. I think would be cool. I mean, it is still a good zone. I think it's underutilized. It's not as memorable. Dustless, we already see a lot of dungeons there. Dust Swallow, I feel like should have some more stuff to it. Maybe they up this island. They have made it more involved over the time, but I didn't add anything really here, but I just wanted to talk about the zone. So, what I thought, right? So we have 3 dungeons of Dire Maul, right? Why didn't Dire Maul get a raid? I would love... So you have the Demon North. No, it's Ogre North, Demon West, Satyr, and Corrupted East. We have the raid portal be south, Dire Maul south, right? Maybe it be across the way, in all honesty. So down here. But I would love to see a Dire Maul raid that digs deeper into the demonic Night Elf activity. Okay? In my opinion. Right? We didn't really get a demon raid in Classic. And in my opinion, Unless you're gonna do a demon raid coming out of the dark portal, right? So maybe we could have a demon raid over here. So it'd be like pre-Outland invasion demon army over here. Like they're preparing. But I think another cooler option, especially if we do get Night Elf Warlocks in Classic, we could see a Night Elf Demon raid. Like, little did we know Tetheldrin was only the top. There was a whole cult of Night Elf Warlocks deeper down into Dire Maul, which is why we see the corruption over there. Which is why we see... which is how Tetheldrin got the demon in the first place, because it was coming out of... because these people down below were... allowed it to happen. And then these people also were the ones using the ogres as the facade. Like, yeah, look, it's an ogre city. But I would love to see maybe a Dire Maul raid that can go into the demon stuff and Nightmare as well. Now, of course, we're down here. We got the Caverns of Time. In Classic WoW, we wanted to go in the Caverns of Time. In Burning Crusade, we do go in the Caverns of Time. So it would be kind of hard to do the Caverns of Time in a way, because it's like, oh yeah, well, we did there in Burning Crusade. Well, we could have maybe the dragons for the first time open the Caverns of Time, and maybe it be not as deep. Or as you get to the bottom, there's just one portal, or two. One for the dungeon, which would be a unique one, not the 3 we did, or the 4 we did, dungeons, but something different. I'm trying to think of like a good time period dungeon. I was thinking more the dungeon would be infinite dragon flights, and then the dungeon be like you're going to a bunch of time periods fighting a bunch of stuff through the time. And then as far as the raid, I would love for a raid to take us back to the War of the Ancients. I think would be a cool Caverns of Time raid idea. Of course, you'd want to see it in retail. But yeah, I would love to see that, so then we could fight on the side of Wild Gods versus Demons, or fight... because I would love to see the Infinite Dragonflight Caverns of Time stuff go on in Classic, and I feel like they could either do where you jump in through the time ways, or go back to a climatic event like the War of the Ancients, or the Elementals versus the Old Gods, even further back, some crazy stuff. But I do think it would have to pertain to areas here. So like they could have the Caverns of Time take us back to pre-Hyjal and have us running around there maybe. Which is why I was thinking for the War of the Ancients. Next up, there is one more area I want us to go to down here. So, in Cataclysm, we know that there's a whole area right here, right? You know, what I would love to see is Old Uldum, which is that broken down facility down here, maybe have a dungeon, okay? I don't know if it could be a full raid. What I would love to see this have a dungeon where you go in, maybe you see... Maybe the reason isn't Deathwing breaking the world why Uldum is revealed. Maybe what we do in there is why Uldum is revealed down the line. Or there were people in there going to reveal Uldum early, and we stopped them, and we just walk out like, oh yeah, we're not gonna mess with this machinery. We just wanted the loot. You know, that kind of thing I think could be cool. But yeah, that's just a few of the ideas. I think I got everything on my sheet here. I just think for the raids, we do have to look for a different vibe. So now we got the Scarlet raid, so we would want to look at underutilized places and underutilized enemies. Okay, which is why I was thinking we got blue dragons. We can do more shadow dragons, demon night elves. Caverns of Time, you got free reign. That's why I mentioned the Naga raid, green dragons, and maybe a full troll raid. And then for the dungeons, I just tapped onto little ideas like Furballs, Tyr's Tomb, Caverns of Time, of course, Old Uldum, the Warden facility over here, Stone Talon Peak as a level up, because I would want to see new leveling dungeons, not just the big ones. And then like an undead troll, something up here. Alright, but I can't wait to see what a Classic Plus or what a Phase 9 or something could bring for Classic. And that's actually why I'm on SoD. Because if it's new cool stuff, I have wanted to see the quests. But now that we're getting a full raid, especially with Lily and Voss, like, there's some interesting lore implications, but I think it's going to be more Easter egg stuff versus full-on reveals for maybe future stuff in retail. But I do like this idea of new stuff, especially how they made more of the classes and specs playable in Season of Discovery. But that's a whole Season of Discovery video. That's enough of my lore rant. Anyways, thank y'all for watching as always, and I'll see you. Also, in the comments, where would you want to see a classic raid be? You know? Because it couldn't be in, like, Northrend, Outland, all that stuff. And it'd be rough to be even in a Kata zone, in my opinion. Or a Kata, like a new Kata zone. Other than Hyjal. Hyjal, I feel like, should be open. Anyways, I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.